Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Shenanigans Shelf. I am Shannon. I'm still I've been under the weather for like about a week. It's been like hit or miss. Right, probably the third day was the worst day. But it's if anything, it's just kind of annoying at this point. I haven't been coughing nearly as much today as I was yesterday, but now I can hardly hear out of this ear because it's just like super clogged for some reason. It feels like it's underwater. I don't know why. That doesn't usually happen, but there's some viral stuff going around. My son got the brunt of it for a little bit there, but we're doing fine. Overall, I would say it's just kind of, again, just a peeve at this point. But either way, I hope you guys had a good October. I had a pretty good October. I read 11 books in October, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. I feel like I always forget to say something when I do my monthly updates, but either way, something I forgot last time was say I watched the 1933 King Kong movie, which was fun, and I did that for a symposium. And I don't know if I've mentioned this for my Shane and Shenanigans before on this channel. This is, of course, for October 2024, which was a good month, I'd say, despite being sick at the end of it. I co-host a symposium online that I do with my brother. We'll probably try to develop it further at some point. I'd be interested, I guess, in inviting more people, definitely expanding it. Haven't had a new member for a little bit now. Started at the beginning of this year, and it's just pretty much a group of friends. And yeah, so we watched King Kong, 1933 King Kong for that in September, and I didn't mention it. For this month's symposium, we actually read some Middle English stuff, which is way more approachable than Old English. My brother Liam can read both of them quite well. I cannot. Middle English, again, way more approachable, quite a bit more easy. He suggested, if you just want practice for trying to learn another language, Middle English is not a bad thing to learn. Chaucer is generally Middle English. We looked at other things, but Robin Hood, there's lots of renditions of Robin Hood that are also written in Middle English. But either way, the only movie that I watched that I find to be really worth mentioning, actually in October, so not a movie in September, was Bellbird by Hamish Bennett, and he's a Kiwi. I watched his only other movie, Uproar, in September, and I actually enjoyed Uproar quite a bit more, if I'm being honest. And then I've continued watching Broken Wood Mysteries with my New Zealand kick. I suppose that I am on and off for years now. But either way, I've seen Broken Wood Mysteries like a couple times all the way through, and I've just restarted. I think I'm on season 3 now. So I've been like slowly working my way through it. And then besides that, I haven't done any writing. I didn't do any writing in October, so not a very good month for writing, I suppose. I'm not too much of a writer. I just write short stories. And nobody reads short stories anyway, except for people that write short stories. But I enjoy short stories. I would like part of this in many ways was that I would like to continuously give myself practice writing short stories, and that maybe one day I'll actually be able to write a full-length novel or something. I have an idea for a novel I'd love to write, but I have several ideas actually. But I mean, and then also I did recently announce the Twain 2025 read along, so I won't be reading any more Twain probably this year. And I did read some Twain in October, so spoilers, I guess. I have a video already scheduled for that to come out, but just kind of in preparation. But we'll be reading a lot of Twain starting in January with The Innocents Abroad. But on to the books I've read. I read 11. Some of these were pretty short, so that made it relatively convenient, but I'm pretty liberal when it comes to counting books that are technically novellas or what have you. And I haven't read too many short stories. My brother today actually, or was it yesterday? Yesterday and today, I think we were talking about it, sent me a link for a cyberpunk short story, and I've never read any cyberpunk, but I think I'm going to try to go ahead and read that short story, and we'll see how it goes. Either way, but on to the books I read. So I did read Tikanga Mari by Harini Moko Mead, who I don't know if at this point I would consider him one of my favorite authors, but I have read 3 books by him, and I really loved them. And then they've been mostly academic, like informative stuff. And then Nakete Matoranga, I also read. I did a video on both those books together. I think it was something like these 2 Maori books were amazing or something like that, and they were. I honestly loved them. They were amazing, and kind of helped trigger like this will to read more and more indigenous stuff, which I'm definitely going to be trying to do, and I have some potential candidates for that I might will even be reading in November in this month. But another one I read was Makers of Scotland. I did already do a video on this, and I read this with my buddy Sean. And this book was okay. It didn't like knock my socks off, but it was pretty good academic introduction to the country of Scotland, which I've never been to. I've never I'm not very well traveled if I'm being honest. I've been to the majority of the United States, and I've lived in several states as well. I don't know what the average amount of states that people have lived in, but I mean I lived in Illinois, Florida, Texas, Arizona, Idaho, Montana, back in Arizona. And then countries I've been to only really include like Bahamas and Canada, which I went to when I was young with my family, and then Ghana. And I lived in Ghana like right after I graduated high school, so as an adult, but it's been a good 7 years, a little more than 7 years since I've been back from Ghana. And it was excellent, but I haven't traveled a lot either. Just like I've never been to Europe. And I've never been to New Zealand, but I like to read about those places a lot. And then, so Makers of Scotland, another book I read was The Night. And I had my video on The Night come out just a couple days ago. It was amazing. I will be talking more about this book when I get to my TBR part. But it was the first book I ever read by Gene Wolfe, and I really, really enjoyed it. I hope you guys, when you watch this channel, aren't too disappointed in the sense of like, because I feel like a lot of people might be here just for fantasy. My thoughts on fantasy books, and some people might be here for everything but fantasy. I don't know. But I kind of just talk about what I enjoy, and I don't know how many people are in the same boat as me, as in likes to read a lot of fantasy with literary fiction, and then also just nonfiction, stuff like that. But that's what I like to read. So that's what this channel is, I guess. That's why it's my shelf, Shenanigans shelf, not just particularly tied to one genre or subgenre or anything. Okay, and then something else I read, and I read this for class. I am still in class, I should say. I'm week 10, yeah. This is the end of week 10 of, I don't remember, 15. I'm kind of ready for the semester to be over. It's that part of the semester was kind of like, I still have to write my paper, my final paper and stuff. But either way, this happened a couple weeks ago on Being in Essence by Thomas Aquinas. It's a philosophy degree I'm getting, but we were going over metaphysics that week, so we read Thomistic metaphysics. Essentially, that's why we read this. It's pretty much a relatively small treatise. It was okay. I'm not gonna do a video on this. I've essentially read a couple other books from that class at this point, and I haven't included them because I didn't read it cover to cover. But oh well. I don't really have intentions to do videos for the books I've just read for school, but I don't know. Maybe someday I'll feel an inkling to do that. Okay, and then I did read Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. My video for that should be coming out Monday. Yes, Monday. It'll be out pretty soon. So it's just some general thoughts on Rhythm of War, and then a little bit, I guess, too, on just Stormlight Archive, broadly speaking. But I enjoyed it, you could say, although it wasn't amazing. And I am planning on reading Wind and Truth in December, which is book 5. Right, it comes out in December. I did pre-order it about a week ago or so. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and I might do some sort of collaboration video with Sam from Sam Not So Wise when we've read that. So either way. And then besides Rhythm of War, I read Things Fall Apart. If you just watched my 10 authors that I've never read, the 10th one I mentioned was Chinua Achebe. Achebe, I actually don't know. But Achebe just comes off my tongue easier for some reason. That's what I tend to say. But I read him very, very soon after making that video, actually, when I went to that used bookstore in California. And that video should be coming out on Thursday, actually, where I go to that bookstore a little bit, and then I talk about this book. I'm wondering if you guys would prefer for the series like that. Would you prefer if I just talk about the bookstore and the books I haul from it, and then do the video separately for the book that I read from it and that I really went to get, like the big one that I was going for? That's kind of what I'm thinking, but I would need to make sure to get more video footage in the bookstore, and I've never done a video before, and I don't know if I'm going to these bookstores pretty frequently, I don't need to do so many big hauls. But either way, like this one, the first bookstore I went to, I only bought the one book, and this one I only bought one other, so it wouldn't be much of a haul. But regardless, I don't know if it's kind of like, I feel like it just might be a mixed bag, like because people are going in to see the bookstore and just hear my thoughts on the bookstore, but the bulk of the video is actually just about the book that I'm talking about that I ended up picking up from the bookstore, but then read before making the video. So I don't know. I guess if you have thoughts, let me know. But things fall apart. My video will be out soon on it. I enjoyed it, definitely. I hope to read the rest of the trilogy at some point. I'm not sure how soon I'll be prioritizing those, but yeah, it's nice that I was hoping to have most of those people crossed off by the end of 2025, and I already crossed off one before the end of 2024, and I might cross off another one relatively soon too. So we'll see. And then Letters from the Earth was another one I did, and I have a video scheduled for this already that will be out on the 11th. So it'll be over a week from now. But this is Mark Twain. I don't have too much to give on that video, but this is his. It was posthumously published. It was posthumously published because it was relatively controversial. He's attacking religion. It's in his typical satirical, funny way, but he just comes off as a sad, broken man, and that's essentially what he is at that moment in his life because he's lost his wife and daughters within the last couple years. So I don't blame him for being upset, but that's essentially what that is. And then after Letters from the Earth by Mark Twain, that was some like pre-2025 reading. I wanted to see what he was like at his lowest because I always knew he was kind of skeptical and cynical in many ways, but yeah. And to be honest, again, I just felt bad for him. The other book I finished was The Royal Navy, 1793 to 1800, Birth of a Superpower by Mark Jessup. This was not a book I had really planned to read. I don't know if this was a book I would normally read, if I'm being honest. With all my other things, I get prioritized more than general history books, especially naval history. It was super interesting, though. Mark Jessup is Mark from Book Ramble, who I love his channel. And that's why I was aware of it, is because he mentioned it, I think in his newbie tag or whatever. When I looked them up on Amazon, they were super cheap, like on sale for super cheap. I got the sequel for like $4. So can't beat a cheap book. And since I bought it, I read it, and I haven't told Mark this, but I might reach out and see if he would want to do like a video like chatting with the author type thing, just maybe get his process writing the book essentially. I know he's like, I'm not a very big channel. I don't know an author would want to necessarily come on my channel because I'm not going to be promoting it to a lot of people, but either way, Mark seems like a pleasant guy, and I'm thinking that I might try to continue to do that for people that I know. I read my brother's book, and there's someone else I know who's written a book, and I haven't prioritized it. I'm not super close to this person, but I've thought about getting some of Philip Hall's poetry and stuff like that. I might try to do that. It's just nice, I think, when you know the person who wrote it, even if you don't know him that well. Like, I know Mark's name and like some very general stuff, but that's pretty much it. But either way, I enjoyed it. I'm actually in the middle of the other one. I'll get to that when I get to my TBR. I think I'm enjoying the other one more, to be honest. But either way, it was still good if you like naval history, and the covers are beautiful. I love the jackets on them. They're so pretty. I was an art history adjunct professor for like just 1 year, but I loved teaching. It's easily my favorite job. It just did not pay well at all, and I was super grateful to have that opportunity. But I love art history. I love art. But either way, okay. Then Spirit and Reality. I read Spirit and Reality. I have a video coming out on this on the 16th of November. So it's gonna be 2 weeks pretty much till this video comes out, which is kind of video on this comes out, which is kind of crazy. And I just talk about one chapter in particular. It's kind of the problem of evil and suffering. At least Birdie gives answer to it. So honestly, feel free to stick around and watch that. I think it was awesome. The chapter it was, not that I'm necessarily awesome just for talking about it, but whatever. And then the last one I finished, and I just finished this yesterday, is Between Water and Heaven. Carl Mills. He's Swedish, so maybe it's not Mills exactly, but Search for American Commissions. And I haven't recorded a video on this, but I have a very distinct memory being a young child and seeing one of Mill's sculptures, and it's never left me, and I don't think it ever will. And so I was like, I need to know more about this man. And so I found this. This was published like in the 80s. So east part of Long Island, New York sent this to me. That's the bookstore I found it from. And so very grateful that I've read this. And I love art history. I mean, I just mentioned I taught art history for a little bit, and I haven't read an art historical book in a little bit now. So I was like, what's wrong with me? So I went ahead and read this. It was pretty quick, and it was great. So I'll talk more about that. Hopefully by the end of November, I'll have a video out on that. I've been reading a lot, so I'm kind of pushed out a couple weeks a bit. But either way, okay. Now on to my TBR. Woo! So I am still in the middle of The Hobbit with my children. We're going really slowly through it. If we don't read every night, and when we do read, it's usually no more than a couple pages at a time. My kids' attention spans just aren't that high, and I feel like I do stop to explain it to them a bit because they don't understand lots of language, which they're only 3 and 4. So I mean, I'm not surprised by that. But I'm still having a fun time. I just don't know when we're gonna finish. Honestly, I'm not even confident we're gonna finish in November at this rate. But I'm still thinking by the end of the year we'll finish The Hobbit. So that's that. And it's a reread for me, of course. It's just been a few years. I am in the middle. I guess not in the middle. I've barely started, but I have started The Prophet of Edan by Philip Chase. Now, Philip Chase, of course, has a pretty big channel here on BookTube, and seems like a nice guy. Sam from Sam Not So Wise speaks very highly of him. My brother Liam knows him definitely better than I do, but book 2 of his trilogy, and honestly, I've only read hardly at all for book 2, but it's kind of grabbing me more than book 1 did, definitely at this point. I'm kind of excited to finish it, to get more into it. I haven't been prioritizing it, or else I'd be further. In fact, this is one, again, I'm not perhaps super confident I'm going to finish in November, but I want to. I'm hoping to finish it in November. So it's on the TBR. I have started it. Pretty much everything I've already started ends up being on the TBR, as you can imagine, I suppose. Another one is The Evergreen and Northern Seasonal, Volume 2. This is kind of my autumnal read. I did start this. I'm actually a decent chunk into it for now, but it's not very long. It's lovely. It's got little artwork. It's got poetry and these like essays, lots of it tied to themes of, fall or autumn, and been really enjoying it. Very, very romantic, very flowery and stuff like that. But I am reading this, and it's not too big of a tackle. And then I did mention I am reading The Royal Navy, the sequel, Mark Jessup's second book. This is in the Napoleonic Age, so senior service, 1800 to 1815. I'm about a third of the way through the book already, and I think I'm enjoying this one more. I don't know if it's the Napoleonic Age is just that much more interesting to me for some reason, or what. I'm not sure, but not that the first one was bad, but I'm enjoying it. So hopefully should be finishing this one in November as well. And then maybe I'll get a video with Mark. If not, then I'll just do a video on both books in one video. So there's that. And then I also have started listening to A House Full of Females, which is by Laurel Thatcher Ulrich. And it's about early polygamy and like church history and accounts for early Mormonism. And I am a Mormon, actually. Now, my beliefs, I don't want to say I'm like not a typical Mormon, because I go to church almost every Sunday, pretty much, except when I'm sick, so I didn't go this last week. But I would say, I guess I vary in the sense that most members, like many Christians in this country, are very, very, very conservative, like socially conservative. And I'm not as much as they are. Now, I don't know if I would call myself liberal. I tend to think more liberally with some things and more conservative with other things. It just kind of depends. Which I feel like, not to speak highly of myself, but I feel like people could definitely do with some more nuance, be more willing to look at things in different lights. Because this year being an election year in the United States, but it's been terrible. People on both sides of the aisle disappoint me quite often. But either way, so I don't read a lot of Mormon history, despite being Mormon. There's some books that I have on my radar. Fourth volume of it just came out called Saints, and so I feel like maybe I should read those. This was recommended by Liam's friend, pretty much, in Liam's Discord. His name's Raf. He's a German Marxist, and we don't agree on a number of things, but he is, for some reason, super interested in Mormonism, and he reads a lot of these books on Mormonism, and some of them are very anti-Mormon, of course, which actually is quite common with Mormon literature. But this one is not. It's kind of just a history, and you'll find a lot of Mormon literature that just says it's a history, and it's very much still anti-Mormon. But which I always thought odd. Whether you don't like, you don't have to like me, and you don't have to like Mormons either necessarily. But lots of people are like, oh yeah, it's like if I want to know Catholics, I'm not gonna read a bunch of anti-Catholic stuff. I'm gonna go read probably what the Catholics suggest. It doesn't mean I'm gonna become a Catholic or anything. So I don't know why people can't do that for all religions and all peoples. Like, right? That it feels kind of ridiculous. People are not charitable enough. Hardly at all in many cases, unfortunately. But I've been really enjoying it. Really, really enjoying it. It's really interesting, really enlightening. The Mormon states in the Mountain West of the United States were essentially the first states to give women the right to vote, which a lot of people thought was counterintuitive because, like, oh, if you give the women the right to vote, they're going to vote against you guys having plural marriage, and then they didn't because they believed it was a mandate from God. So of course they wouldn't. I mean, some people actually do believe in their faith, but either way, and that's been very interesting. Very much enjoying that. I did barely start the Periaka Woman, which I like barely started. I don't know how much to say, but I should finish it. That's on my TBR for November. Okay, and then the other ones that I have not started, but I'm hoping to get to. This one I know I will be getting to because I will be reading this with my friend, just like I read Scotland, that book on Scotland with my friend Sean. We'll be reading this one, The Wars of the Bruces. And my great great grandma, I have one of my great great grandmas, of course, Mary Louise Bruce. She was a Bruce, and I have several ties to Scotland when you go back far enough on my branches tree. But that's the closest one, and it's a great great grandma, so it's not particularly close. I knew her daughter though. I never knew her. My great grandma Millspaw. She married a German man, and so my great their daughter, my great grandma Millspaw, passed away in 2010. I grew up with her. We went and saw her every year at least, and so. I try to feel attached to all my stuff, but very excited for this. It's particularly with the wars of the Bruces and stuff, not just Robert the Bruce, but it should be fun. Very excited for that. And then Wild Pork and Watercress finally came. It took like a month. It shipped from Australia, so not too surprised, but it took like a month to get here. Really short. I think I will definitely be reading this in November. This is the book, if you don't know, that is the basis for the Hunt for the Wilder People movie. So very excited for this. It's gonna be great, I imagine. If not, I'll be disappointed. But either way, I think it'll be fine. And then Indigenous Education and the Metaphysics of Presence. I did get this book. I think it's been probably over a month now. So, and I didn't get to it in October. I'm hoping to get to it in November. It's not particularly long. It is an academic work though, so it might be a little slower. But this is from a guy who teaches at University of Canterbury in Christchurch, New Zealand. Carl Mika or Micah, I'm actually not sure. But I'm very much hoping to get to that one. That would be very cool. So we'll see. And then I will be reading The Wizard by Gene Wolfe. This is kind of part of that buddy read. I read The Night in October. Us four other guys should be reading The Wizard. It's sequel, part of this duology in November. Very much looking forward to this. Gene Wolfe, great introduction when I read The Night, and so I'm very much looking forward to The Wizard, continuing and finishing this story, and maybe I'll get to some more Gene Wolfe, hopefully not too long after. And then Friends of Thunder. This book came today, and I did mention I want to read more Indigenous stuff, so here we are. This is Folk Tales of the Oklahoma Cherokees. Now, of course, they were moved to Oklahoma, part of the American Trail of Tears, which is not a particularly good part of our American history. Because there is an eastern band of Cherokees that were not relocated, but they were essentially consumed just within to the American populace, which is, I think, my ties to the Cherokee. Her name was Abigail. And she passed away about 20 years before the Trail of Tears started, and we have no ties of anyone getting moved to Oklahoma, so her kids didn't seem like they were moved. But I'm not sure they would necessarily have been how involved they would have been with the Eastern Band of Cherokee at that point, or were they more involved just with the white community that they were also a part of because they were half white. Their dad was Irish, and their mother was Cherokee. I don't know the dynamic necessarily, but the bulk of the Cherokee got moved to Oklahoma with lots of other tribes, and this was gathered by Jack and Anna Kilpatrick, some good Irish names. And this is just like a ethnography, like collection of folk tales and maybe myths and stuff too. But Friends of Thunder, I'm really excited to get to this. So hopefully I'll be getting to this in November. That would be awesome. It's not very long either. So, and then the last one I'm really hoping to read, is kind of the idea, is to read Malice, the first book in the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. Get some more fantasy. I did know that's one of my goals, is to read more fantasy. So hopefully I get to Malice by John Gwynne. That would be awesome. It's 4 books. Both his series sagas sound really good, to be honest, but Sam did point out that while the Bloodsworn saga, the one that just finished, is based mostly off Norse mythology, which I do find incredibly interesting, to be honest. He said this Faithful and the Fallen one was more inspired by Celtic folklore and mythology, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if that gets done as much, or maybe it doesn't get done super well as much. I don't know, but I've heard these books are great, and if it's got Celtic stuff in there, I am super drawn to that. So I think I'm going to prioritize Faithful and the Fallen saga first, and book Malice is book 1. So I'm hoping to get to that very soon, hopefully in November as well. But that's what I have for you guys. This video ended up taking a really long time. I did talk about books more this video than I felt like last time, and this is a book channel, right? So we did that. But please let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you're reading, what you hope to read, any good movies or TV shows. I didn't mention sports. Unfortunately, it's the Dodgers and the Yankees in the World Series, which actually might be finishing like right now. If not, the day this video goes live will be the absolute last day. I think Game 7 would be today at the latest, and I don't think it's going to make it to Game 7. But I don't like the Dodgers or the Yankees. It's a very unfortunate tragedy. But so is sports. That just happens, right? But either way, I will see you guys next time. Please have a good one.